This training will cover the reporting obligations for any faculty, staff, or student in the Gustavus community that will be working with minors. Gustavus Adolphus College is committed to the well-being of minors visiting our campus or participating in college-sponsored programs. The Gustavus Minors on Campus policy addresses the safety of minors in our community and the mandatory reporting obligations of members of our community that are involved with minors. While Minnesota law requires the reporting by certain professionals at the college, such as educators, healthcare providers, and others, the college policy extends this reporting obligation to all employees and students. Students, faculty, and staff are required to make reports of suspected neglect, physical or sexual abuse that occurred within the past 3 years, regardless of whether they witnessed the suspected abuse directly or whether the suspected abuse was reported to them by another individual. As we go through the training, please keep in mind that the goal and intention of reporting is to help children and their families receive the assistance they need. It is also important to remember that in some cases it's the law, and in all cases a requirement of our policy. The immediate safety of the minor is our primary concern. If we know of or have reason to believe a minor is being neglected or abused, or has been neglected or abused within the preceding 3 years, we must make a report. If the minor is in imminent danger, contact law enforcement immediately. Non-emergent reports should be made to the Title IX coordinator in person, by phone, or by email within 24 hours. A written report must be submitted within 72 hours to the Department of Human Services. The Title IX coordinator is the campus point of contact for all reports to ensure we are reporting promptly and to the correct resource. Please keep in mind, this is highly sensitive information, and that the only person you should be reporting this to is the Title IX coordinator, who will assist you in making the formal report. Once you meet with the Title IX coordinator, we can discuss if there is anyone else from the college that will need to be notified. The Title IX coordinator will assist you in filing your report with either local law enforcement or Nicollet County Human Services. Contact information for these resources is located in the policy. If for some reason you contact law enforcement or Nicollet County Human Services first, please circle back with the Title IX coordinator to inform them of your report. What you need to report is anything that concerns you that might be abuse or neglect. This might be something you can visibly see or something that a minor tells you. If you have reason to believe the incident has occurred within the last 3 years, you need to report. When making a report, you will include your name, contact information, and any relationship to the party or the party's family, and the source of the information you are reporting. The name, address, and other identifying information of the party will also need to be reported. In some cases, you may not have all of this information, but we need to be as thorough as we can to assist Human Services in evaluating the report. If there is domestic violence, criminal activity, including sex trafficking of children, any weapons or other dangerous activities in the home, this must be included. Description of the injuries or present conditions, and your understanding of the alleged maltreatment to the child or minor should also be included. The description of the allegations, date and location should be included if you have it. We must do our best to give as much information as we can when filing the report, but keep in mind we do not want to alarm the minor by asking too many questions. So I've covered why we report, when to report, who to report to, and what information needs to be reported, and now we'll cover the types of allegations that are required by law and our policy to be reported. Neglect, which by the way is the most common report, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and mental or threatened injuries is what we'll discuss. Neglect, as I mentioned, is the most common report. It is usually the failure of the child's caregiver to provide needed food, clothing, shelter, medical or mental health care, education, or appropriate supervision. I'm sure all of us can think of circumstances that would fit in those categories. If the caregiver neglects to protect a child from conditions or actions that threaten their safety or fail to take steps to ensure that a child is educated by law would also be considered neglect. Since we live in Minnesota, I think about inadequate clothing, heat, food in the cold winter months. This would be an example of neglect. Someone in the home that is a threat or involved in criminal activity is another example of neglect. These are just a couple of examples, and obviously there are many situations that could potentially fall under neglect. Physical abuse is non-accidental injury inflicted by a person responsible for the child's care. So examples may include, but are certainly not limited to, marks or bruises, burns, unexplained injuries, unreasonable confinement, or poisoning. Sexual abuse is the subjection of a child or minor to sexual contact by a person responsible for a child's care, a person with a significant relationship to the child, or a person in a position of authority. So family members, neighbors, teachers, coaches, just to name a few. And fondling, touching, threatened sexual abuse, sex trafficking, pornography, whether the child is exposed to it or a victim of it, are some examples, but obviously not limited to just these. Mental injury is harm to a child's psychological capacity or emotional stability evidenced by an observable and substantial impairment of a child's functioning, so failure to thrive. Threatened injury means a statement, overt act, condition, or status that represents a substantial risk of physical or sexual abuse or mental injury. An example that resonates with me for threatened injury would be a minor that is in the home where domestic violence occurs, and there's a threat that the violence could happen to that minor. So once a report is received by the Department of Human Services, the report is screened by an intake team within 24 hours. In order to move forward with an assessment or an investigation, the report must meet the following criteria. It must meet the legal definition of maltreatment, it must have sufficient information to locate the child, and it must not have been previously assessed or investigated by Nicollet County or another county. If a report is not screened in, that does not mean the report is ignored. Nicollet County does cross-reporting with the county attorney's office, law enforcement, and they may refer the case to another department to provide services to the family. Although mandatory reporting obligations for minors in our campus policy is different than Title IX, our campus point person for the minors policy and reporting is the Title IX coordinator. Do not hesitate to reach out with any questions or concerns. Dale Plemons, Director of Environmental Health, Safety, and Risk Management, can also be a resource for you with any questions. Off-campus resources are available on the screen, and you can also find their contact information in the policy. I want to stress how important it is that we handle this properly. We hope it never happens, but one report can make a world of difference in the life of that child. When in doubt, please reach out to the Title IX coordinator to discuss.